This is Zachariah Trench, the director of the Federal Bureau of Control.
Imagine you're sitting in a room. The only decoration in it is a poster. It doesn't matter what the poster is of, just that it's there. And sometimes you think you can hear something coming from the other side of the poster. Something scary and alien and exciting. And as far as you know, the room that you're in is the whole world. So maybe you want there to be something behind the poster. And all you have to do is reach your hand out and pull it down yourself. Once in a while, a game comes along that is so neat, so interesting, that you want to talk about it to your friends, to Twitter, to anyone that can listen. And I think Control kind of makes that really difficult to do by virtue of its own presentation. Sure, it's simple enough to chalk everything Control throws at you with. It's just like if the SCP Foundation wiki was a video game, and in that way, you would kind of be right. But diluting it down to something so amateurish and simple robs the game of its storytelling, atmosphere, and narrative depth. You play as Jesse Faden, the lone survivor of an impossible altered world event from 17 years ago, who has been searching for the answers to why these terrible things happened since her childhood. With the help of a supernatural, extra-dimensional partner, she stumbles upon the oldest house, a building with anti-memetic properties for the protection of both itself, the people, and the objects within. And if you don't already know its location, you'll never be able to find it, let alone even see it properly. And in this unknowable and non-Euclidean space in the middle of New York that is shifting around you, the US government has set up the Federal Bureau of Control, which monitors, secures, protects, and studies anomalies from other planes of existence. And matching with this concept, the rooms and places in this impossible building don't have to line up correctly or make sense with normal level geometry, because that's not how this game is built. The overly oppressive, brutalist architecture of a major government office is mixed into and taken over by a rapidly shifting and expanding game world that more than breaks the bounds of what you'd expect from the level geometry. This is an experiment in level design meant to disturb and possibly confuse and unease the player to great effect. Now, I know I just threw a lot of jargon at you in the last little bit, but Control is nothing if not thorough on its lore. Between collectible files, audio logs, videos on TVs and slide projectors, and a telephone directly connecting you to beings from another plane of existence and to the mind of a dead man, the amount of quality of dedicated, realistic writing to rationalize these phenomena with both real and fake science, and also some pseudoscience, is staggering. The information is easy to digest and understand, and you can begin to piece together the puzzle of what happened in the Bureau's walls relatively early on. Presentation is Control's strongest suit, and the choice of color and lighting to convey danger in the path forward is one of its key aspects. Something like chromatic aberration on particle effects and waves and trailing off of some enemies distorts what you're looking at and makes it seem like they are barely existing in your world, just pushing past the threshold to try and kill you. Jesse Faden may be the main character of this game, but the real star is the oldest house, where the Bureau exists. Your adventure may give you the answers that Jesse has been looking for almost the past 2 decades, but the oldest house has stood for time immemorial. You can tell just how much love and care went into designing an inherently physically impossible space, and scenes that manipulate and contort the environment to highlight this are superb. Files and documents talking about the prehistory of the Bureau are scant, leaving just enough detail out to let your mind rush with possibility. As with any other Remedy-style action game, you have a plethora of options in combat, each of them as viable as the others in the right hands. I myself maxed out the damage of my telekinetic throw and boosted the attack power of my charged sniper shot in order to annihilate most enemy encounters in one shot or fairly quickly, but full frontal combat with a shield and shotgun are almost just as good. The game is suited to the playstyles it gives you, and only certain scenarios require that you may have to step outside your comfort zone and your chosen weapon sets for a brief time. And that's mostly what Control is about. Possibility. The idea that Remedy can take their brand new IP and mix it and match it with their past ones to create new stories, new scenarios, and breathe life into their other beloved franchises is really important when you have a legacy like they do. And throughout the game itself, not knowing what you're about to encounter next, where you'll go, what you'll see when you get there, and how the hiss is taking over the building and how you can stop it, all of these things float in your head as you play, and it's honestly incredibly engaging. The world and its characters are fleshed out well and can be incredibly deep at times, which is a Remedy's strong suit. But I wonder if putting the story in this impossible setting lended itself to exploring the more human things just below the surface and making that connection to something familiar that much more interesting. Let's see if I can do this in one sentence. Control is a third-person action shooter Metroidvania dealing with an impossible space and objects of power that break the very laws of physics. I don't know why I didn't pick the game up sooner. The combat is fluid and interesting and might not be the deepest thing in the world, but it's fun and varied enough, let alone challenging enough, that despite the fact that I died a fair number of times, I never wanted to give up on the next push. To me, the combat sections are almost a bridge to the next story section, in which I fought monsters in order to get to the next scrap of lore that I wanted, but they're still done with love and skill and care. The Remedy combat style has cemented itself in their last 2 games, and it's fun and functional, and I can continue playing an entire series with it just as long as they kept small iterations in the design going. As for the writing, it sits in this really interesting place of legal plagiarism and original content. Having been on the internet at the height of the popularity of the SCP Wiki, I read probably far more entries than I should have. For those who don't know, the SCP Wiki is a fictional site offering descriptions of items of otherworldly properties or impossible powers, such as, let's say, SCP-294, a coffee vending machine that will always dispense what is asked of it within the limitations of the current reality it habits, even if that happens to be something like liquid molten gold. Control takes concepts and ideas from this site and makes them a bit more tangible and real, since you can actually witness the effects of these objects having on the game world. One of the first objects you come across is a simple 8-inch floppy disk from bygone era that has the ability to redirect kinetic energy and throw objects with telekinesis, and binding that to yourself gives you the same powers. These objects all have the same amount of love and care in their descriptions and classifications as any SCP entry, but with the same budget affording other games full in-universe novels of quality within them. Reading the logs and lore of this world is fascinating, and a great way to spend a few hours. There are characters in the game like Dr. Darling, who you really only see in videos and recordings, and he has real depth, and it makes sense as scientists and researchers trying to understand the world around them as their worldview crumbles apart upon the discovery of new anomalous beings again and again and again. And the fact that he takes joy in all of this is really indicative of his character as head researcher. Each one has experienced heavy and incredible loss as part of this very dangerous job, and they have to keep rolling with these punches in order to keep the world safe and understand how these objects work. It's morbid and exhausting and incredibly interesting to me. One other such character, Zachariah Trench, the previous director of the Bureau, has been dead from the very start of the game, and yet he's a major guiding force on everything you do. Dealing with and persevering through and despite death and loss is a powerful tool to draw players in, and it's really incredibly engaging. It's what a person does in times of adversity that show their true character, and their setting and story work really well to humanize these characters and make them feel like they are real people. Eventually, Control almost normalizes these weird interactions with the world, but not in a way that fails to continue to surprise you. You just get indoctrinated into this universe, mentally prepared for the next crazy thing headed your way, even if you don't know what it is around that next corner. It makes you feel like you're an entry-level employee, catching up with the rest of your colleagues until seeing things like an anchor that duplicates clocks en masse is part of the norm and part of the charm. You stop asking, "What?" and start asking, "Why?" And Control gladly feeds your curiosity and brings it back down to earth for you to understand. It's a hard thing to balance, and I think Control really nails it. I think Control is a very tightly designed, well-built game with an engaging story and far more interesting setting than the story we are being told. Sequels and crossovers are likely to continue to happen in the future, which will expand on the history and the future of the oldest house and the world around it, which will be the most interesting thing for me to see going forward. In this setting, we're seeing endless possibility in front of us when it comes to story and characters, and I very much hope Remedy takes this home run it had with Control and makes something even better with it. And right now, the poster is really, really close to being torn off the wall. I hope that with whatever sequel or anything that comes out after this, it doesn't turn out that there's nothing actually behind it after all. Thank you so much for watching this video. It took me a little while to make, and I really appreciate the views and support that I am getting from you guys. If you want to come hang out and play Rainbow Six Siege with me, you can. I have a link to my Discord in the description. If you want to give me some other monetary support because you like what I'm doing and you want to get in on the ground floor on a channel that could really use some of that support, you can send me some money through Ko-fi or support me on Patreon, or I have a bunch of links in the description. But most importantly, thank you so much. I just passed 100 subscribers, and I know that's not a lot, but it's the first major milestone that you have to hit on YouTube, and that's important to me. Thank you so much for everything. Always. 100%. And hopefully, I will see you in the next video. So, have a great day. Bye-bye.